Being the scapegoat, which is a role that was put upon you in early childhood, does a tremendous amount of damage. And that's what we're going to get into in today's video. We're going to talk about what it means to be the scapegoat, how it manifests, why you were given that role, and how you can heal it. If you were the scapegoat, you were given the foundation for dysfunction and codependency later in life. You were not given the tools to have self-confidence and self-esteem and to know who you are. Instead, you were given the opposite. You were taught how to not have boundaries, how to people please, how to do unhealthy caretaking. You were taught to take on what wasn't yours. The person who is a scapegoat is often given labels such as the problem in the family or the problem child, the disruptor, the one who can never be happy, the one who is always emotional, or the one who is always messing things up, the one who just can't get their act together, or the one who just can't be like their brothers and sisters. And what's wrong with them? The one who needs to be fixed. And the thing is that the scapegoat is typically the strongest one, the one who is bearing the light, and the one who is the most aware. And unfortunately, they have no idea of that until later in life. The scapegoat is the one upon which all of the blame, the guilt, and the shame are heaped upon them from the other members of the family. Often, the scapegoat has no idea that they're even in this role, that this is going on, and they just accept all of this bad negativity that isn't theirs. What happens is that if the other people in the family are not healthy within themselves, if they have their own wounds, they haven't healed, and they don't know how to deal with their feelings in a constructive way, they can easily say, well, it's her fault. She messed things up again. She's in this terrible mood, or she did this. She wasn't being helpful. She let this happen, and she let her siblings get away with this. It's her fault, or it's his fault. And they don't know any different. It's as if you're watching a movie and you're seeing someone who is being convicted of a crime they didn't commit, and there's nothing else they can do because they've already been condemned. It's like that. The scapegoat has no recourse, and so they accept more and more of this load of heavy responsibility that is for someone else. People who were scapegoats in childhood, they grow up and they tend to feel a lot. They're extremely empathic and very aware, and then they can pick up the energy and the feelings of others, whether it's when walking into a room or with a coworker, with a friend, or with an intimate partner. They can usually, or they tend to accept pain from others because that's what their training in early life was. So if they're not aware that they're doing this, they will accept that pain, accept problems that aren't theirs, take on wounding that is not theirs, because that's what they learned how to do. I'm making this video to draw the attention to this so that we can start to wake up if this is describing your situation and say, why am I accepting, someone else's problem? Why am I accepting someone else's pain and carrying it like it's my own? Like I said earlier, the one who is a scapegoat is capable of bearing intense burden. They have the strength to do that, but it comes at a tremendous cost, and they don't need to. So this is all about a dysfunctional family system. And in this dysfunctional unit, there's a homeostasis. Each person plays a role, and as long as everyone continues to play that role, we maintain the status quo, even though it may be a dysfunctional status quo. So people don't take responsibility. Maybe mom and dad don't take responsibility, or the siblings don't, because they always, when things go wrong, or if they're not happy, they point the blame at the scapegoat, and the scapegoat continues to absorb it. So some very, very common traits of the scapegoat, as I'm sure you can glean so far, are they have very, very low self-esteem. They have zero confidence in themselves. They are people pleasers, doormats. They are tremendously compassionate and empathic. And they tend to get into codependent relationships based on this overcompliance and unhealthy caretaking that they learned early on. How do we heal this? This begins to heal when the person who is scapegoated learns or starts to take steps in loving themselves and discovering who they are. This means that they invest time into discovering what their needs and wants are, what they like, instead of going into relationship after relationship just to please because that's what they're comfortable with and that's what's familiar. When they start to take the time out to get to know themselves and get to know what's okay with them and what's not, where are their boundaries? It is paramount in healing this that people know where their boundaries are. Because if you go into relationship after relationship and you're taking on other people's pain, what's going to happen is you're going to keep attracting people that are like your caretakers when you were a child. You'll attract people who do not take responsibility, and as the scapegoat, you took on responsibility times 10. You took it on for more than just yourself. So if you find that you are taking on the burdens and all the feelings and the healing of someone else and they're not doing their own and you are trying to push that to them and say, you got to work on this, or you need to address this, or you need to take care of this aspect of your life, and they don't, and you keep trying and you keep trying, that's you acting out that codependency that you learned as a scapegoat, that you learned that you have to caretake them because you are responsible for how they feel. You're responsible for their happiness. The thing is, you're not. Each person is responsible for their own happiness. And part of healing this is to learn that you are only responsible for yours and not someone else's, and someone else is not responsible for yours. The last thing I want to say is that the person who is a scapegoat needs to understand and accept that they cannot change others. If you heal this and you work on this and you make a lot of progress, you have to learn at some point that if you go back to your family system, do not expect them to have changed. Don't expect them to congratulate you or acknowledge the progress you have made in healing yourself. It's like that saying, you can never go home. So if you came from a dysfunctional family, you may find that it's difficult to go back into that system without you slipping back into that role, or if you don't, without them treating you like you were the old version of you. So if you do interact with those people, and sometimes it can be very, very helpful for you to maintain separation, both physically and in terms of contact. It's very helpful for you to not go into that with any sort of expectation, not expect them to acknowledge your growth and healing, and to just accept that they're going to be who they are, and that is not your job to do anything about. Accept that you did not get the love and the nurturing and the acceptance you needed as a child, and accept that instead you were the pawn, that they did not see you for who you were. They saw you as a place, a receptacle for their wounds, because they, being imperfect people, did not heal that within themselves, and they dumped it on you very unfairly. So this is very hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, and it's very, very sad, and it does require some amount of grieving, but it is part of the healing process, is to eventually come to a place of acceptance of these things. Just remember, you are not responsible for cleaning up anyone else's emotional garbage. It's setting boundaries within yourself and setting boundaries with others. And this process of undoing this scapegoating role that you learned takes time. I want to commend you and give you kudos for the courage that it takes to heal this, because this is not a small thing, speaking from experience. So I just encourage you to keep going forward on this path, keep working on this, and keep doing your healing, and know that you have support around you. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, share this with anyone you feel could benefit from this support. Thank you so much. I'll catch you next time.